Well, hello, we're back at Cambrian Classics again to continue ruining Tim's day. We were here this morning with the Daihatsu Charade. We've gone up in scale a little bit with Betty, my AU Fairmont, the car I bought in New Zealand, drove around quite a lot over there and then brought back to the UK. And we're just adjusting up the rear brakes. Fairly simple job, but quite a lot easier when you've got it up on a lift because everything is at a nice height. So Tim's just pinging the adjuster. You've got shoes inside the rear discs, fairly common sort of a handbrake, but yeah, hopefully this will take some of the play out of the lever. It has had rather too much. We're also here to address another MOT advisory. I can't remember if that one made it to the paperwork. It might have just been a verbal advisory, but we've got a steering rack gaiter that is ripped, and we're going to replace that as well.
Diff seal.
Diff seal, that was the other one. Yep, thanks Tim. The diff seal that I hadn't changed for 2 years, we're finally going to do, and I've just realised I've left it in the boot.
Yeah, we'll change the oil in the back axle as well.
Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea. So if you haven't seen the underside of an AU Fairmont before, here it is. Big old live axle.
Watts linkage.
With a Watts linkage, yeah, very nice. Coil springs on the saloons. The Estates and Utes had leaf springs. Or you could optionally have these with independent rear suspension. But because Aussies love a bit of towing, they stuck with the live axle in this generation. I think the next generation they were all independent, but I could be wrong. But yeah, this diff seal clearly hasn't got any better in the 2 years I've been ignoring it. And has been throwing out quite a lot of luck. Well, the good news is the new seal we've got is the same colour.
Oh, that'll fix it.
Yeah, so it's also brown. So that's encouraging.
Yeah. So when you're doing any transmission oils, always undo the filler first.
Yeah.
Good hint.
Even Muggins here knows to do that one. Because it's no good draining the oil out and then finding you can't actually fill it up again.
No. You know, but especially on a car like this where there's absolutely no chance of you finding a replacement back cover.
Yeah.
Or on a gearbox on a classic car or whatever. You don't have to be taking the gearbox out because you're a plum. And
yeah. I also don't over tighten these things. I remember the sump plug on my Austin A90 Westminster, and I ended up having to get a jack under the breaker bar and use the weight of the car to undo it, which is far from ideal.
It's not black, so
No. That was a bit of fresh stuff that Eddie put in.
we'll find the sludge at the bottom now and see.
Yeah. My friend Eddie ended up replacing the bent half shaft after my little Lincolnshire experience, which was the first long trip in this car in the UK. It didn't go well. We can see the surface rust is fairly apparent, despite this car having been given a darn good waxing. What's going to come out? Oh, look at that.
Oh, it's kind of goldenish.
Yeah. I'm going to resist the temptation to stick my finger in it.
Steady. Yeah. You don't need to change diff oil when you're doing a seal, but because it's of an unknown age and mileage, it's kind of a bit of maintenance while we're here messing with the back end.
Yeah, makes sense. This car has done plenty of miles after all. Almost 200,000 miles.
There's no way that's original oil.
No.
Some of the stuff I drain out of classic cars.
I'm now getting the whiff, the aroma of gear oil.
Yeah, it's not very pungent though.
I've certainly smelt worse.
Yeah. Some of the classic cars I've done, they've been original oil in 60s cars. You know, it comes out like Marmite.
Yeah.
It's just awful. I had one where I could touch it and it wouldn't go on my fingers.
Anyone who saw my Invercar road trip when I went to Essex to take her back to the factory, we went to visit lovely Simon and we drained the diff oil because I'd assumed it was all in one unit. It isn't, separate diff. And it came out sort of silver.
Oh, nice.
It had utterly broken down into water and some silvery mush, which is why Tuck's gearbox sounds so bad.
Yeah, well, often something missed on cars. People miss transmission oils. It's always something I do with a big service when I'm doing MGs.
And it is an open diff on the back of this one. So some would have had a limited slip diff. So a quick way to check is to turn one rear wheel and see which way the other one goes. So that one is going the opposite direction to this one, whereas if they go the same, it tends to suggest there's a limited slip diff. But a limited slip diff needs a very specific oil to allow it to
slip. It needs a slip additive in it.
Yeah.
A lot of them probably the same grade, viscosity, sorry.
Okay, so prop shaft is disconnected and lifted
Yeah.
out of the way.
So you've got to be careful when you take flanges off of transmissions and back axles because they're torqued correctly for the bearings and the pinion, and some of them have crush sleeves between the races and things. So you can't if you over tighten them, you'll never be able to reset it again because the crush sleeve has been irreversibly crushed.
Bang.
Oh, that would be the ramp with your head. So
How Hubnut.
yeah, concussion. So the best thing to do is use a pin punch, mark the pinion and mark the nut in line with each other. So you can take it off, and as you do it back up again, you can line the two dots back up again, and you've got the torque exactly as it came apart. You're not having to re-torque it or, damage bearings or all the potential headaches. So you just line the two dots up.
That's probably why this has never happened, because I've never had to do this before, and I was worried about that. I know there are preloads and whatever, and
Exactly.
I don't want to upset anything.
No, I mean, yeah. So you presume that the axle has come in correctly set up. It's been driven a long time. You're not got any noises. You don't want to disrupt that. I do them all the time on MGBs. I mean, they're 40-year-old, 50-year-old seals. So
Tim's usual fare.
Yeah.
Not Australian Fords or Japanese hatchbacks.
But principle is the same. So you want to get the torque exactly how it is right now.
Okay.
So that's all we'll do is we'll just pin punch mark it, and I get a bit of illumination in here, so you see what I'm doing. If you want to hold that, assistant.
Yay, I got a job.
So you can get the nut, the dot. Try and be accurate with it to the centre point. He says, yeah. Yeah, so I've got a nut, a divot in the centre and a divot on the nut, and then you just tighten it back up again and line the two dots up.
Super.
Someone done it before?
Yeah, that exhaust mount we are going to have to replace, because that has definitely suffered with being hurled, with having oil hurled at it.
Yeah, it's absorbed all the diff oil and gone soft, and it started to split and stuff.
Mind you, the entire exhaust is probably going to need replacing. This is the famous up and down vids silencer delete. There.
It's still very quiet considering it's so
ridiculously quiet. Yeah, there's a lovely burble to the exhaust now, so he's done a good job down there. We're hoping this is the remnants of when the transmission was leaking quite badly, and isn't this seal up here, but it could be.
Kind of got that fling mark to it, hasn't it? But
Yeah.
that one's easier in theory because it just slides out the back of the transmission. Okay. I seem to remember when we looked at it before.
Oh yeah, you can see a bit of movement around it.
Yeah, the bushing is 200,000 miles worth of use out of it.
So. Yeah, so I might need to get a new one of those next. Annoyingly, I don't think I have one of those. I have a rear crank main seal that I hope never to have to use, but I don't think I've got that seal.
No, it's certainly less impressive than this one at the back. This one at the back is, made a mess of the diff, and
oh yeah, everything is
flung it everywhere. So.
Yeah. Okay, that was a bit of a game getting the nut off.
Very tight. There's lots of Loctite on there, probably super strength. But there's so we're going to have to clean all the threads out thoroughly.
Oh, yeah, you can see it in the threads there.
Same as in the stuck in the nut as well. Use the puller on the flange and then the old seal out. You can get under it. Coming? Can't see from this angle.
Oh,
nearly. Thought about it.
Thought about it, yeah. I mean, you know what? I like it here. There we go.
Nice with the right tool.
Yeah. What a handy little tool that is. I was going to say, there's some serious cleanup to do here, isn't there?
Yeah, we'll get it all back together again and give it a good scrape and a good wash down once it's got a seal on it that actually might stop the cleaner from going inside the diff.
I'm very, very glad I wasn't attempting this myself. I would never have got that nut undone.
No, I mean, it took my very big windy gun with a lot of pressure, and it still took a long time.
Much rattling. Now, at this point, I must say a big thank you to Graham Cockerell in Australia, who sent this seal and a load of other goodies way back, like 2 years ago. Yeah, thank you, Graham. Much appreciated.
There'll be some of you tutting that on watching this that I'm not using something to push it on, but the sockets I've got that are this kind of size are too shallow. And
yeah, it's quite a stick out.
Yeah, so just going around gently, squarely, till it's flat with the casing.
I also need to say thank you to Adrian, also in Australia, who sent various goodies, including the missing bit of trim on that window. Haven't yet got around to fitting it, and perhaps the most exciting thing is he's sent an actual Ford AU battery clamp. So for the first time in 2 years, well, however many years, because the battery wasn't secured at all when it arrived here in the UK, it will actually have a battery clamp instead of a ratchet strap.
But is it Hubnut then?
Well, that's true. I mean, I've got 2 cars with batteries held in with ratchet straps at the moment. So Tim's just cleaning up the thread because we're sort of doing this by getting the nut back to the same position. We need to be sure we know when the nut's getting tight, which means getting all this nasty Loctite out of the way.
Yeah, there's quite a lot in there. That's why it was so tight coming off.
But what is this handy little device?
It's a wire brush designed for cleaning bulb holders out.
Oh.
So it's the right size for the end of a bulb, and you just kind of twiddle it and you can clean all the corrosion out. But in actual fact, it's a really, really useful wire brush.
I
use it for all sorts.
Actually, I may have to get 2, so I've still got one I can clean bulb holders.
This is a King Dick tool, number 139.
139. There you go, folks.
That's going in quite well just by hand. So you know, the first time it's on the seal, it's not dry.
Loctite in place. Other brands are available, and indeed we are using another brand.
Yes, Granville in this case.
Could go to Granville.
Okay. Let's put the flange up onto a taper, as well as so it's better to go slowly, not overshoot your mark.
Yes, that's the important thing. Make sure the diff's still good.
Yeah.
If the diff doesn't go round, you've definitely got it wrong. Well, we've got the back end done, so now we're on to front end. Tim's just fitted the new rack boot. Now, where did these rack boots come from?
Well, I did a bit of measuring when it was in before, and a bit of research, and it turns out that Ford Transits, early Transits, had exactly the same dimensions, because this fits absolutely perfectly on the inner and the outer.
Job.
Yeah. You know, I figured that somewhere in the Ford catalogue, they're not going to make a different size gaiter for every vehicle ever. There will be some crossovers in parts. So, yeah.
Hopefully we managed to find it.
Yes, exactly. It's actually an older Transit than this is a Ford. You know, I'm trying to remember. I think it was late 90s Transit. But it's a perfect fit, which is amazing, because all the aftermarket universal ones were way off on size. But this is bang on the right dimensions for Ford. So
further improvements to Betty, who incidentally does not have McPherson strut front suspension. It's double wishbone, because Ford Australia. And one last thing is just to check the tracking. I think Seaside Garage over in Denmark did a video recently showing similar technology for checking your tracking.
Need to adjust the mirror on the other side.
Oh, okay.
It's easier if you do it. There's a wing nut on the top.
Oh yeah.
I think it probably just needs to point down a bit more.
Oh yeah, I got you, so you can rotate it.
That's it. Oh, okay. Back the other way a bit. Stop. Perfect. Yeah.
Teamwork is the dream work.
Cock on.
Oh, excellent. So how does this actually work? What's actually going on?
Okay, well, first of all, you zero the gauges, so because you've got different widths of rim and different centre lines. So you set one up, touching the rim in the centre line, put the two together, make sure you get a 0 reading, because things always change a little bit depending on where the pins are and things like that. So you've got to line the two red lines up it's a bit difficult because they're not
Yeah,
dead on straight. But
and it's
if you're
difficult
the
to show it
one,
with this camera.
yeah. So, say for whatever reason you're on a different size tire or whatever, you're slightly off. You just bear it in mind when you measure it. So when the red lines line up and you look straight down, you just pick in your mind where that is relevant. You might be able to see it if you put the camera down to that.
Oh, I don't think the camera's going to go down there. No, it's not macro enough.
As you look in that mirror, you see this reflected.
Okay.
This panel here with the pointer, and there's a line in the lens, and you're lining the line in the lens up with the tip of this pointer.
Okay, yeah.
So by moving this, you move your field of vision, and that then gives you a reading here. So you always aim for the line in the middle of the pointer, and then that gives you the reference to look down here. That number of degrees and seconds then, so with this one we've got a 16-inch wheel, so pointing the pointer at 16, and we had a 10-minute reading, gives you 1 mil.
Perfect.
So if you had a small wheel, it would have therefore a different millimetre reading.
So who needs lasers?
You don't need lasers. That
lasers.
works equally well. You know, it's what they call Dunlop gauges.
Yeah.
It's what garages all used to have 40 years ago or whatever. But it's what I use for doing the classic cars. For me, there's only the track rod end adjustment is the only thing you got on a classic car. So that's all you can set with this. I mean, with a modern car like this, you're going to have camber, caster, toe, probably on two axles.
Instance, you wouldn't do this to set up the suspension on a Mazda MX-5 because there's too much that's adjustable. Yeah,
exactly.
That's where the lasers really come into their own.
Yeah, but if you're just doing steering alignment,
which is the only thing we've changed today.
Yeah, we just took a track rod end off and put it back, and I counted the number of turns off and then the same number of turns on, and it is bang on. You know, I've not had to adjust anything.
So there we go. Further improvements for Betty. So there will obviously be further improvements coming. The headlamps are a bit cloudy, and in a year or two, I might actually do something about that. You never know. But yeah, thanks, Tim, for
no problem.
Further sorting out Betty the Ford AU Fairmont. And we shall head home now and get ready for probably another trip away in the camper. So I don't know if that'll have already have happened by the time you see this. Volkswagen camper, do go and watch the video. It is out there, it is still for sale. There are still some improvements, like a proper windscreen washing system rather than the Volkswagen one being done. So yeah, still available. But otherwise, thanks to Tim at Cambrian Classics, and I'll see you in a future video. Farewell.